Good morning, sophomores. Apologies again for not getting this out yesterday. LibriVox and the Internet Archive were having some trouble, but I'm getting this out early this morning so you have time to listen to it, complete some questions, and then hopefully by the end of the week wrap this up so we can move on to some other things. Anyways, we'll be working through Act 4 today. I'm going to try to get it all done because it's a relatively short act, especially compared to 3. Maybe I have those flip-flopped in my mind. I'm going to be playing the audio, circling things on the text version here so that you can get a sense of what I'm talking about and hopefully add some context and thoughts to the play itself. So without any further ado, it's kind of a Shakespeare joke, much ado about nothing. We'll jump into the play.
Midsummer Night's Dream. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. Act 4. Scene 1. The same. Lysander, Demetrius, Helena, and Hermia lying asleep. Enter Titania and Bottom, Peas Blossom, Cobweb, Moth, Mustard Seed, and other fairies attending. Oberon behind, unseen.
Come, sit thee down upon this flowery bed, while I thy amiable cheeks do coy, and stick musk roses in thy sleek, smooth head, and kiss thy fair, large ears, my gentle joy.
Where's Peas Blossom?
Ready?
Scratch my head, Peas Blossom. Where's Monsieur Cobweb?
Ready?
Monsieur Cobweb, good Monsieur. Get you your weapons in your hand, and kill me a red-hipped humblebee on the top of a thistle. And good Monsieur, bring me the honey bag. Do not fret yourself too much in the action, Monsieur, and good Monsieur, have a care of the honey bag, break not. I would be loath to have you overflown with a honey bag, Signor.
All right, so the thing to note up here is the kind of shift in tone from Act 3. In Act 3, I brought up that Titania's speeches are pretty forceful, I think verging on the level of threats. Here, she seems to have changed her tone a bit. Come, sit thee down upon this flowery bed, while I thy amiable cheeks do coy. It seems like it's back to kind of the sweet talk rather than the threats. And I think we see Bottom having, I was about to say Bob Webb, Bottom having a bit of a change here as well. If he was a bit kind of just overwhelmed or confused by the fairy attendants earlier, now Bottom's the one giving very specific commands to the fairies. He seems to have pretty quickly adapted to being Titania's new man and everything that goes along with that. And so giving very specific directions to Cobweb about the kind of bee that he wants and the right way to take the bee's honey bag back so that it doesn't break. I think that we see that maybe the quickest of all the couples in this play, Bottom and Titania, have kind of found their rhythm, so to speak, in terms of a couple, and are relatively happy at this point. That won't last for long, but I think it says something that Bottom, even though he was a bit kind of self-loathing, kind of making fun of himself in the last act, is quickly adapting to being somebody who's loved and adored and waited on.
Where's Monsieur Mustard Seed?
Ready.
Give me your knife, Monsieur Mustard Seed. Pray you, leave your courtesy, good Monsieur.
What's your will?
Nothing, good Monsieur, but to help Cavalieri Cobweb to scratch. I muster the barbers, Monsieur. For methinks I am marvellous airy about the face, and I'm such a tender ass, if my hair do but tickle me, I must scratch.
All right, so this part here always good for a joke, another pun there. This is one of those lines where you can play it two ways depending on whether or not Bottom realizes he now has the head of an ass. But he's clearly kind of saying, "Gosh, it's been a while since I've had a haircut. I'm really hairy on my face. This is kind of odd." And again, depending on what the director decides for whether or not Bottom realizes he's been transformed, there's a lot of fun to be had with the irony in those lines there.
What? Wilt thou hear some music, my sweet love?
I have a reasonable good ear in music. Let's have the tongues and the bones.
Or say, sweet love, what thou desirest to eat.
Truly, a peck of provender. I could munch your good dry oats. Methinks I have a great desire to a bottle of hay. Good hay, sweet hay, hath no fellow.
And again, Bottom being asked what he would like to eat, a peck of provender, oats, hay, these things that we would expect donkeys or asses to eat. What's a bit odd, though, is earlier he just wanted some honey on top of these. I mean, maybe he's got refined taste now that he's the partner of the Queen of the Fairies, but either way, Shakespeare's still having fun with Bottom talking as though he's got these donkey-like traits that he just doesn't know what to do with. That rather than, a fancy steak, he'd rather have a bundle of hay and a few oats on the side.
I have a venturous fairy that shall seek the squirrel's hoard and fetch thee new nuts.
I'd rather have a handful or two of dried peas. But I pray you, let none of your people stir me. I have an exposition of sleep come upon me.
Sleep thou, and I will wind thee in my arms. Fairies, be gone, and be always away.
Exeunt fairies.
So doth the woodbine the sweet honeysuckle gently entwist. The female ivy so enrings the barky fingers of the elm. Oh, how I love thee, how I dote on thee.
They sleep. Enter Puck.
Welcome, good Robin.
Advancing.
Seest thou this sweet sight? Her dotage now I do begin to pity, for meeting her of late behind the wood, seeking sweet favors from this hateful fool, I did upbraid her and fall out with her, for she...
We see a change here in Oberon. He seems to be taking a bit of a victory lap when he shows up. And again, depending on the director, her dotage, now I do begin to pity, dotage kind of being her affections, her crush on somebody else, Oberon's pitying. I think this could go two ways. He could either be really sarcastic and clearly be making the point that this isn't far enough, or we could actually see Oberon feeling like this has gone too far. And I think the idea that it's gone too far is going to be a big part of the speech that he gives for the rest of this, especially when Titania wakes up. But pay attention to whether or not he's willing to tell Titania it goes too far by the end of this little exchange here.
His hairy temples then had rounded with a coronet of fresh and fragrant flowers, and that same dew, which sometime on the buds was wont to swell like round and orient pearls, stood now within the pretty floweret's eyes, like tears that did their own disgrace bewail. When I had at my pleasure taunted her, and she in mild terms begged my patience, I then did ask of her her changeling child, which straight she gave me, and her fairy sent to bear him to my bower in fairyland. And now I have the boy, I will undo this hateful imperfection of her eyes.
All right. We see again Shakespeare coming back to this idea that eyes are kind of, the body's weakest point in terms of love. That the idea that Bottom is ugly, physically ugly, is the biggest kind of problem here. We see, too, I think, Oberon being a bit of a revisionist, kind of making up the history he'd rather tell people than the history that rather happened, because he's saying, when I had at my pleasure taunted her, and she in mild terms begged my patience, I then did ask of her her changeling child, which straight she gave me. that exchange is him saying, I was a little hard on her and she was being pretty kind with me. I don't know if we would describe the last, act that way where they were having the exchange or maybe the act before that. Either way, I think it was pretty ugly and we see Oberon maybe minimizing what was going on. But he says, I asked her for the changeling child, the Indian boy, and she gave it to me. That seems to be leaving out an awful lot of the actual events here, most specifically that Oberon had Puck enchant Titania to falling in love with Bottom, and at that point she no longer cared about the Indian boy, so he just kind of wandered over to Oberon's side. It seems like Oberon is deliberately trying to kind of reframe what happened to make it look like everybody was in on it, everybody understood what was happening, whether or not this is for Puck's benefit or Oberon just dealing with his own guilt, realizing how far this has gone and how wrong he's been to go about it this way. I guess that's up to each reader and director to decide. But either way, we get a sense that he's telling the story he's most comfortable with. And I think that's a big theme of this entire act, that when maybe we do things that we're embarrassed about because we're in love, or we do things that we're embarrassed about because we hate somebody, we often react by kind of telling a story that makes us look a little less foolish, a little less mean-spirited, a little less unaware. And we'll definitely see that by the end of Act 4 with the Athenian youth, when they wonder what's been going on, and we'll kind of write it off just as a dream, where we get at least one of the titles of the play.
And gentle Puck, take this transforming scalp from off the head of this Athenian swain, that he awaking when the other do, may all to Athens back again repair, and think no more of this night's accidents, but as the fierce vexation of a dream. But first I will release the fairy queen. Be as thou wast wont to be, see as thou wast wont to see. Dian's bud or Cupid's flower hath such force and blessed power. Now,
all right, so a few quick things to note here. Oberon is instructing Puck to remove the enchantment from the Athenian swain, which would be Lysander, and that when they wake up, everyone's going to go back to Athens and think no more of this night's accidents. Basically, just wonder if, as Oberon says, it was the fierce vexation of the dream. They had a dream that seemed so real, but none of these things actually happened. That will work here. I guess there's an open question of whether or not that's the reaction that Lysander, Demetrius, Hermia, and Helena would have had anyways, because the night's events were so bizarre, or if this is the result of the flower. Either way, we also see here Dian's bud or Cupid's flower has such force and blessed power that Diana, or Diane, who we talked about as far back as Jane Eyre with, of course, cousin Diana, kind of femininity, women's power, the kind of female mind is more powerful than Cupid's flower, this love juice. And so if Shakespeare is being a feminist here, we get the idea that women maybe have their heads on a little straighter than men when it comes to love. Not saying I personally think that's true or false. In my experience, seems to add up that way. But either way, we see Shakespeare giving Oberon a line that seems to kind of favor the rationale and the logic of women, that they seem to have an easier time overcoming Cupid's flower or the kind of embarrassing effects of love, as it were.
my Titania, wake you, my sweet queen.
My Oberon, what visions have I seen? Methought I was enamoured of an ass.
There lies your love.
How came these things to pass? Oh, how mine eyes do loathe his visage now.
Silence a while. Robin, take off this head. Titania, music call, and strike more dead than common sleep of all these five the sense.
All right, if you notice there, when Titania wakes up, She asks what's happening. She starts by saying, Oberon, what visions have I seen? Seems to be thinking that this was a dream. Methought I was enamored of an ass. Again, we get to laugh because not just is it a donkey, but also a stupid person. Oberon points it out to her. There lies your love. Bottom's laying on the ground, still sleeping in this scene. And so Oberon seems to kind of be rubbing her nose in it. That's who she was in love with. Titania goes on to ask this question: how came these things to pass? What happened? Oberon never answers. As far as you get is silence a while. Be quiet for a moment. Whether or not he tells Titania the story of what happened, why she thought she loved Bottom when he had the head of an ass, seems pretty up in the air. And even though I think we see Oberon changing his tune a bit, my personal feeling is I don't think Oberon ever comes clean, or comes clean in a way that the audience would probably agree with. He's happy to remove the enchantment. He's not yet happy to kind of get the full story out. And we also see that Titania has changed back to, in a sense, her old self. Oh, how mine eyes do loathe his visage now. She, like probably everybody in the play who's not enchanted with Bottom, thinks Bottom looks disgusting with the head of an ass. So we're getting back towards where the play started, but we, at least for the moment, have the difference that Oberon and Titania are a couple again for, this hour, and going to kind of put the world at ease. No more pestilent clouds, no more floods, no more earthquakes. Life, at least again for the moment, will be livable for everybody around Athens.
Music, ho! Music such as charmeth sleep.
Music still.
Now when thou wakest with thine own fool's eyes peep.
Sound music, come, my queen, take hands with me, and rock the ground whereon these sleepers be. Now thou and I are new in amity, and will tomorrow midnight solemnly dance in Duke Theseus' house triumphantly, and bless it to all fair prosperity. There shall the pairs of faithful lovers be, wedded with Theseus, all in jollity.
A weird exchange here again. I think it shows how quickly Oberon and Titania, probably like any dysfunctional couple, go from hating each other to being madly in love. We have Oberon saying, well, now we can dance in Duke Theseus' house triumphantly and bless it to all fair prosperity. I'm pretty sure that if you wanted some supernatural beings to bless your marriage and have it come across well, that Oberon and Titania are a pretty dysfunctional couple. But I think we can also draw a comparison here, that Oberon and Titania are very much like Theseus and Hippolyta. Actually, I was reading that in some productions, the actors who play Theseus and Hippolyta also play Oberon and Titania. We haven't seen that production, but I read that that's a common way to do it. But anyways, maybe it's the kind of hot and cold, we hate each other, now we love each other, and we're willing to kind of overlook everything that just made us hate each other, that actually makes Titania and Oberon a pretty good couple to be blessing their wedding. I guess I talked myself out of my first point there, but either way, again, a lot of different ways to see them. Either they're kind of that couple that's, quote, crazy in love, or they're just kind of a dumpster fire waiting for the next match.
Fairy king, attend and mark. I do hear the morning lark.
Then, my queen, in silence sad, trip we after the nightshade. We the globe can compass soon, swifter than the wandering moon.
Come, my lord, and in our flight, tell me how it came this night, that I sleeping here was found, with these mortals on the ground.
All right, so Titania once more asking Oberon, what exactly happened here? Tell me how it came this night that I sleeping here was found with these mortals on the ground. Before we can hear their answer, they all exit. But again, I'm hard pressed every time I read this play to believe Oberon said, "Oh yeah, my plan to get the Indian boy was to make you fall in love with the ugliest beast I could find, and wait for you to be so embarrassed and humiliated by that you'd basically ransom me, the boy." I don't think his explanation sounds anything like that. It's probably much more like, "Yeah, that was a weird dream. You just, you were out for about an hour." I think Oberon's probably not owning up because that would make life even harder for him than the play opened with. But either way, I think Shakespeare's having fun with that idea that Titania keeps asking what happened, and Oberon keeps kind of dancing around it or just giving a non-answer there.
Exeunt. Horns winded within. Enter Theseus, Hippolyta, Aegeus, and train.
Go, one of you, find out the forester, for now our observation is performed. And since we have the varward of the day, my love shall hear the music of my hounds uncouple in the western valley. Let them go. Dispatch, I say, and find the forester.
Exit an attendant.
We will, fair queen, up to the mountain's top, and mark the musical confusion of hounds and echo in conjunction.
All right, so Theseus has taken, kind of oddly, Hippolyta and also Aegeus, because we need him to be here because he's going to see Hermia, and we'll get that kind of conflict from the start of Act 1, what's going to happen to Hermia for defying her father, figured out. But Theseus sounds like that kind of clueless person in a relationship who thinks the things that he's interested in doing are the most interesting things to everybody around him. Part of that's probably the result of being, somebody in power, but he's brought, especially Hippolyta, out to see his hounds hunt. And Hippolyta's response is kind of, I think, classic frustration and just kind of underhanded anger at Theseus dragging her out here, showing off, not being aware at all of who she is. They'll get married by the end of the play, but I think especially with this next speech here, pay attention to it because it shows that Hippolyta isn't going to let him slide. Hippolyta's going to remind him, he's the one excited about this marriage, not her.
I was with Hercules and Cadmus once, when in a wood of Crete they bayed the bear, with hounds of Sparta. Never did I hear such gallant chiding. For besides the groves, the skies, the fountains, every region near seemed all one mutual cry. I never heard so musical a discord, such sweet thunder.
Okay, so we just had Theseus say, man, I've got these great hounds, they're going to go out and hunt, you've never seen anything like it. And Hippolyta goes, well, actually I have. When I was with Hercules and Cadmus, these figures from mythology, they had hounds that were the best in the world, the hounds of Sparta, and they just were amazing at hunting. They were the best dogs you could ever imagine. No dogs are going to be better than them. I think clearly she's comparing him probably to some of her exes and talking about how great they were, how strong they were, how interesting they were, how great they were at this thing that Theseus says he is. It seems like a pretty deliberate attempt to kind of get under his skin and make him feel a little insecure about the fact that she probably likes a lot of guys more than Theseus, perhaps even every guy at this point more than Theseus.
My hounds are bred out of the Spartan kind, so flued, so sanded, and their heads are hung with ears that sweep away the morning dew, crook-kneed and dew-lapped like Thessalian bulls, slow in pursuit, but matched in mouth like bells, each under each. A cry more tunable was never holed to, nor cheered with horn, in Crete, in Sparta, nor in Thessaly. Judge what you hear.
All right, so Theseus backs up and goes, well, my dogs are the Spartan kind. They're kind of like Hercules and Cadmus dogs. And when you hear my dogs, you're going to think they're really, really cool. They're better than any dog in Crete or in Sparta or in Thessaly. So Theseus, I think, trying to walk back and say, I've got some cool hounds too. It's not just Hercules and Cadmus, trying to kind of reassert his masculinity here, reassert the fact that he believes he's attractive, he believes he's worthy, for Hippolyta the same way Hercules and Cadmus are, but a really funny exchange there that I think is very human. The idea that one person might bring something up that they think that they're good at. Their partner trying to get under their skin will say, "Oh yeah, my ex was even better at that," and the person's saying, "Well, you just haven't seen me at my best. Wait for that to come up." It's a very human exchange, and I think to see Theseus and Hippolyta in a way be the pettiest about their love is again showing that it doesn't matter if you're king or an actor or an Athenian youth. Love makes you crazy in the same ways that no one's above kind of getting in these spats. No one's above trying to show off in stupid ways. That's a human quality that doesn't go away no matter how much money or success or power you have. You're always going to be human enough to act like an idiot in front of the person you're trying to impress.
But soft, what nymphs are these?
My lord, this is my daughter here asleep, and this Lysander. This Demetrius is, this Helena, old Nidar's Helena. I wonder of their being here together.
No doubt they rose up early to observe the rite of May, and hearing our intent came here in grace our solemnity. But speak, Aegeus, is not this the day that Hermia should give answer of her choice?
It is, my lord.
All right, so something to note here. Aegeus is asking probably the smart questions at this point. I wonder if they're being here together. Gosh, why are Demetrius, Helena, Hermia, and Lysander all sleeping in the forest pretty close to one another? And Theseus says, "Oh, no doubt they rose up early to observe the rite of May." Again, this is midsummer. So they were just up here early to celebrate summer showing up. I think it shows that Theseus is definitely on the side of the Athenian youth, that he's going to come up with kind of excuses for what it seems like is happening. And again, I think that goes all the way back to Act 1 when he intentionally leaves Lysander and Hermia together, probably so they can make a plan to run off together. It seems like he's constantly covering for them. We're going to see, because Demetrius asked here, or Theseus rather, reminded Aegeus, that Hermia needs to give her answer today. That Theseus again is going to kind of back off anything bad happening. So I'll get to that part of here.
Go, bid the huntsmen wake them with their horns.
Horns and shout within. Lysander, Demetrius, Helena, and Hermia wake and start up.
Good morrow, friends. St. Valentine is past. Begin these wood birds but to couple now.
Pardon, my lord.
I pray you all, stand up. I know you two are rival enemies. How comes this gentle concord in the world, that hatred is so far from jealousy, to sleep by hate, and fear no enmity?
All right. We do see Theseus here maybe taking on the part of Hippolyta, because he asks, what's basically going on? Why was everybody laying on the ground sleeping just now? Don't you guys hate each other? I think he's, in a way, asking the same sort of question that Hippolyta kept asking Oberon, which is, what exactly is going on here? Because this looks like it doesn't make any sense. I woke up next to Bottom. He's wearing these little garlands that show that I was in love with him, and Oberon's kind of trying to give the best answer he can without getting himself in trouble. Lysander, especially in a moment, is going to do the same thing as Oberon, because he just got interrogated and basically give a non-answer to Theseus' question of what's happening.
My lord, I shall reply amazedly, half sleep, half waking, but as yet I swear I cannot truly say how I came here. But as I think, for truly would I speak, and now do I bethink me, so it is, I came with Hermia hither. Our intent was to be gone from Athens, where we might, without the peril of the Athenian law.
All right. One difference that we have between Lysander and Oberon, I suppose, is that Lysander does come out very quickly with the explanation that his intent was to be gone from Athens, where he and Hermia might, without peril of Athenian law, he's going to, if he were allowed to continue without Aegeus interrupting him, say, get married and then come back to Athens, already married, so that we could get around that. But the first part of Lysander's answer here is that he doesn't know why he's at least sleeping in that point in the forest. And I think we'll get that idea again, that it was maybe a dream, maybe a really crazy dream. Whether Lysander believes that it was total nonsense or can remember some things, but it's easier to call that a dream, I think that's an open question in the play. But either way, he's at least up front with the idea that he was going to try and pull one over on everyone with Hermia by eloping.
Enough, enough, my lord. You have enough. I beg the law upon his head. They would have stolen away. They would, Demetrius, thereby to have defeated you and me. You of your wife, and me of my consent. Of my consent that she should be your wife.
All right, it's interesting that Aegeus appeals to the other men around him. That first he looks to Theseus and says, my lord, you have enough. Basically, he confessed that he was trying to get around our deal. I beg the law upon his head, likely asking Theseus to consider either imprisonment or execution for Lysander as well. And then he turns to Demetrius, thereby to have defeated you and me. I think it's odd, again, that Aegeus is never speaking his daughter's name. He's talking about Demetrius, he's talking about Theseus, at least with the honorific title there. But again, I think it shows how little he communicates with his daughter, that the only people he's talking to here are the other men in the room that he thinks he has something in common with, he thinks are going to back him up. I think it speaks to, again, how distant he probably is from his daughter, probably females in general, that they never even appear as someone he speaks to, even when he's talking about them.
My lord, fair Helen told me of their stealth, of this their purpose hither to this wood, and I in fury hither followed them, fair Helena in fancy following me. But, my good lord, I wot not by what power, but by some power it is. My love to Hermia melted as the snow, seems to me now as the remembrance of an idle god which in my childhood I did dote upon. And all the faith, the virtue of my heart, the object and the pleasure of mine eye, is only Helena. To her, my lord, was I betrothed ere I saw Hermia. But, like in sickness, did I loathe this food, but as in health, come to my natural taste. Now I do wish it, love it, long for it, and will for evermore be true to it.
Lot to unpack here from Demetrius' comment. Demetrius, much like Lysander, gives, I think, a fairly accurate and fairly damning version of events, that Helena told him that Lysander and Hermia were running away. Demetrius followed them to try and break things up, and then Helena followed him. But then Demetrius goes on to say, I don't know by what power my love to Hermia melted as the snow, and seems like something that was childish. I think we see him almost taking lines from Lysander, saying that kind of foolish love is a product of being young, and real love requires some maturity, some age behind it. He's very much kind of, I think, copying those statements, and he doesn't even stop there. He goes on to say that when he loved Hermia, it was like a sickness, that he did loathe this food. It was going back to that idea of food that you'll eat when you're sick, and having sweets that can sometimes be so much that they make you sick. Demetrius is saying, you know, I was eating something that was bad for me when I loved Hermia, but now that I'm healthy again and realizing what's good for me, the kinds of things I liked before, my natural taste, I'm back to loving Helena again. Whether or not this is convincing, especially because, as I said before, he's still under the effects of the love juice and not fully aware that, he's been enchanted, I guess we can take, on our own as audience members or readers. But he's definitely reusing almost every metaphor for love that Lysander lays out in Act 3. And again, I think that's Shakespeare's brilliance, not just to have these characters say, oh, I'm in love again, but to use exactly the same metaphors. Maybe part of that is, like I said in an earlier lecture, there's only so many ways to talk about being in love. And at some point, you're going to describe love the same way probably millions of other people have to the person that you love the most and, feel like it's the kind of truest, most unique thing in the world. It probably can be, but language only allows us to say, I love you in so many ways. And so I think even if we truly believe it's the kind of love of the ages, it's the most unique love anybody's ever had, words make us say it the way that, everybody else has. It's that old kind of adage, you're unique just like everybody else.
Fair lovers, you are fortunately met. Of this discourse we more will hear anon. Aegeus, I will overbear your will, for in the temple by and by with us these couples shall eternally be knit, and for the morning now is something worn, our purposed hunting shall be set aside. Away with us to Athens, 3 and 3. We'll hold a feast in great solemnity. Come, Hippolyta.
All right, and so going way, way back to that conversation we had in person about Act 1, where Theseus says, I cannot, by any sort of exemption or extenuation, overrule the law, that I can't make exceptions for anybody, I can't bend the rules. Here he does exactly that. Aegeus, I will overbear your will, for in the temple by and by with us these couples shall be eternally knit. Aegeus, I don't like where you wanted to take this, and it would be really cool if we could have a triple wedding today, so we're just going to pretend that the Athenian law doesn't count. I think thinking about how Theseus has acted since Act 1, we could see that coming, him setting up Lysander and Hermia to run away. But it almost seems un-Shakespearean in how brief and how simple he's overruled it. It almost makes you wonder why, back in Act 1, Theseus says, I can't extenuate what's going on here. I can't bend the rules. And then by the end of Act 4 says, rules? What rules? I don't know what you're talking about. We're almost late for a wedding. Let's get going. It seems odd. I'd be interested to know thoughts about why those are such quick details, but such important details too in the course of the play.
Exeunt Theseus, Hippolyta, Aegeus, and train.
These things seem small and undistinguishable.
Methinks I see these things with parted eye, when everything seems double.
So methinks, and I have found Demetrius like a jewel, mine own and not my own.
All right, we do have Hermia and Demetrius kind of saying, gosh, I'm feeling like my head is in a fog. I feel like I'm kind of understanding what's happening, but not fully. Helena gives a really important line here that I think to some degree suggests that she understands Demetrius doesn't love her of his own free will. So methinks, I think that too. And I found Demetrius like a jewel, mine own and not mine own. She says that he seems like something that is mine and is not mine, loves me and doesn't love me. So I think it's interesting that Helena seems more aware maybe of the events that just happened than Hermia, certainly than Demetrius, because he's still enchanted, than Lysander, and realizes perhaps, as the play's ending, in a pretty sad way, that this love isn't kind of freely given. This love is the product of enchantment rather than real love.
Are you sure that we are awake? It seems to me that yet we sleep, we dream. Do not you think the Duke was here and bid us follow him?
Yea, and my father.
And Hippolyta. And he did bid us follow to the temple.
All right, so Demetrius maybe being the slowest of the group, but also maybe because he's still enchanted, is wondering if they're actually awake. It seems that we sleep, we dream. I guess that makes sense because Demetrius is still under the effects and maybe realizes he's been enchanted, but not fully, and so isn't processing the world in the same way Hermia, Helena, and Lysander saying, "Oh yeah, this is all really happening. This is the case that just took place with Theseus, Aegeus, and Hippolyta coming and asking us to follow to the temple." So I guess maybe that makes sense that Demetrius is having a harder time waking up. He's still under the influence, so to speak.
Why then we are awake. Let's follow him. And by the way, let us recount our dreams.
We have, much like, again, Titania, Demetrius saying, let's follow Theseus back to Athens and get ready for these weddings, but also let's kind of figure out what each person's dream was and compare them, or let's at least tell our dreams to each other. So again, perhaps the fact that he's still enchanted gives him an edge on everybody else, makes what happened a little more believable because he's still, feeling the effects of the magic.
Exeunt. Awaking.
Well, when my cue comes, call me and I will answer. My next is Most Fair Pyramus. Hey ho, Peter Quince, Flute the bellows mender, Snout the tinker, Starveling. God's my life. Stolen ants and left me asleep. I have had a most rare vision. I've had a dream, past the wit of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass if you go about to expound this dream. Methought I would... There is no man can tell what. Methought I was... And methought I had... But man is but a patched fool if he will have to say what methought I had.
All right, so we see Bottom, much like the lovers, and especially Demetrius, waking up, and I think it's funny that even though this play is all about dreams, as prominently as the title, that Bottom is saying, man is but an ass if you go about to expound this dream. People are idiots if they would go about around saying what they dreamt. And I wonder if this is, again, Shakespeare kind of taking a shot at himself, that he's writing a play about people's dreams, and he has a character like Bottom, the kind of stupidest character in the play, say, you'd have to be really stupid to go around saying what you dreamt to the people around you. I think Shakespeare's probably having a laugh at his own expense. But anyways, Bottom, like the other characters, seems to be waking up exactly kind of where he was enchanted. He believes that he's just waiting for the line from Flute to run back into the practice, doesn't realize time has elapsed, doesn't realize he's changed, but is still struggling with this idea that maybe this could have happened. And again, I think he's like the lovers in that regard, that maybe I was this stupid. What would account for it? I probably wasn't that stupid. That could only happen in my dreams, but maybe. That seems to be a big theme of the play with relation to dreams.
The eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen. Man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was.
So we see him, Bottom again, and he's butchering a pretty classic verse from the Bible. I didn't look it up beforehand, so I don't have it ready to go, but trust me, if you read any scholarship about Midsummer Night's Dream, somebody will mention the chapter and verse for you. Either way, I think another point here is that Bottom is making a joke, a bit of a malapropism. The eye of man hath not heard. Well, that makes sense because eyes don't hear. The ear of man hath not seen. Again, makes sense that an ear doesn't see anything. So we could laugh at it and say, well, he just doesn't know what the senses are. But we could also look at it, I think, a bit more deeply and say that, again, kind of going back to the senses, you can't get your ears to understand that you find somebody really physically attractive if you see them, or you can't get your eyes to understand if somebody's not physically attractive that your mind fell in love with somebody's humor or intelligence or kindness, things like that. It's a moment to laugh, but I think Bottom makes a bigger point that, again, our senses don't overlap with each other when it comes to love. That just like Helena is saying, I'm as fair as Hermia, but Demetrius loves Hermia, the senses don't line up with each other. We can love people that nobody else finds physically attractive and love them for different reasons. We can love people who are very physically attractive and not love them for anything more than that. I think there's a really deep idea that Shakespeare hides in just kind of a joke that's Bottom not understanding what the senses do, that gets again to the idea of the play that love is crazy, love is incomprehensible, love can't be explained, and that's what's the best and worst parts of, love in the human experience.
I will get Peter Quince to write a ballad of this dream. It shall be called Bottom's Dream, because it hath no bottom. And I will sing it in the latter end of a play, before the Duke. Peradventure, to make it the more gracious, I shall sing it at her death.
All right, and so we end the act with Bottom kind of returning to the Bottom we met in Act 1, decided that he's going to direct the play. He's going to get Peter Quince to write a song about his dream. And furthermore, wouldn't it be cool if at the end of the play that they're about to perform of Pyramus and Thisbe, when Thisbe dies, Bottom sings the song about his stupid dream to kind of make that even more poignant. I think, we realize that everything's kind of going back to the way it quote unquote should be, that Bottom is turning back into this pompous idiot that everybody loves but also kind of gets frustrated with. Just like the lovers are in love with the right person now, Theseus is letting the wedding take place. By the end of Act 4, everybody's almost to where they need to be. And then starting tomorrow with Act 5, we will mostly just get to watch the play of Pyramus and Thisbe by the actors, which is always one of the biggest highlights, I think, of any production of this. Anyways, again, sorry for not getting this up yesterday. I appreciate you guys hanging in there and, again, kind of rolling with the punches on these. Make sure to check your grades. Those have been updated. I probably need to add in a lecture question set, but they're pretty stable at this point, and I, again, appreciate people making the effort and the time to stay up with participating, not just in this class, but all the classes. It's hard when, we're not standing in the same room for 50 minutes having bells tell us when it's time to come and when it's time to go, but it's an adjustment that I think helps you to mature as young adults in terms of managing your own time well and learning how to get things done when nobody's standing behind you asking you to do it. I know that's true for me as well. So we'll get through it and hopefully make the best of an otherwise difficult situation and learn and grow from it in ways that we may not have had the opportunity to had we still all been in a room together. Anyways, be well, take care, and I will talk to you.